What's up, guys? Welcome back to Season 6 of the Morning Brew Podcast. I'm your host, Kayla, and I'm interviewing creatives every other week to bring you the human experience behind their art. Before we get started, make sure that you're following the Morning Brew Podcast on Instagram, Spotify, and anywhere else that you're listening to your podcasts. This week, I'm super excited to bring you an interview with the legendary songwriter Eddie Schwartz, who's responsible for writing hits such as Pat Benatar's Hit Me With Your Best Shot. Eddie has a new EP that's already out, and you could listen to it now. It's called Film School, and we're here to talk about that. I hope you enjoy the interview. Hi, Eddie. Thanks for joining. I'm Kayla. I'm so glad that I could meet you. Could we start by having you tell everybody what's your name and where you're from?
Sure. Eddie Schwartz. I'm a songwriter, an artist, producer. I'm in my home in Nashville, Tennessee, but I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada, and New York City.
That's so cool. And for those who might not recognize from name alone, you are the songwriter behind Pat Benatar's Hit Me With Your Best Shot, which is legendary. So before we dive in, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you personally. What is something that brings you joy?
Well, certainly songwriting, which might, I hope that's not too on the nose, but yeah, I mean, writing music, playing, instruments, being creative is kept me alive all my life. Yeah, it's, making music has always been, just sort of really important to my survival as a human being. Not only the music that I try to create, but just the music of so many other incredible people who I've had the joy of listening to over the years, and my family, the people that are close to me, my friends and family, they also have a lot to do with keeping me going, and probably wouldn't have the support that I need to write music and to have the creative life I've had as a songwriter and a music person without the support of my wife Joanne and my kids and a lot of friends who are also in the business who have kind of kicked my butt on a regular basis and kept me going.
That's such a sweet answer. I really love that. Who is someone that you look up to?
Wow. A lot of people. I was thinking about James Taylor this morning for some reason, and how, Fire and Rain, what a brilliant song that is. And lately I've been thinking a lot about people like Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger, from the 50s, 40s, 50s into the 60s. And in particular, I've been thinking about them because they were songwriters and artists who were very much of the people and very much spoke to the political situation of their time. They were very proactive, and they were activists and they were advocates for the common people and what they deal with and how hard it is. So right now I'm spending a lot of time thinking about those guys, those incredible, and also, just how they did it, how they wrote songs that, school children could sing. I'm thinking about, This Land Is Your Land, the Woody Guthrie song. You go to summer camp and you sing that around a campfire, and you don't, and it's totally enjoyable on that level. But it's actually a very deeply political song as well, about, about who does own America, for example, and the answer he comes up with is everybody who. All of us do. So, yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling.
No, that was a great answer. I really enjoyed that. Do you remember how old you were when you wrote your first song?
I do. I was 12, going on 13, and I was, again, very influenced by a lot of the folk music I was hearing at the time. And I wrote a folk song called The Tale I Tell.
That's pretty cool.
Please don't ask me to. Please don't ask me to sing any of that.
I won't. I promise.
It was also pretty much influenced by those guys, and of course Bob Dylan, was coming into his own And I had the good fortune of spending time with a cousin who lived in New York, and she lived right in Greenwich Village. So, I could see guys like Dylan. She was on St. Mark's Place, where the famous picture of Dylan and his girlfriend that's on Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. That picture was taken like just sort of right down from where her apartment was. So yeah, it was very much in the air, and got me going at a pretty young age.
That's so cool. And so you've written so many amazing songs for other people, but at time of recording
Thank
this
you.
episode, you have just released your EP, Film School, and I'm super excited
Hmm.
to chat about this with you. So, something that was really interesting that I was reading is that this EP almost didn't happen. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah. So I moved to Nashville in 1997 with my wife and two young kids and a dog and a cat. And the reason I did it is because things had kind of dried up for me in Toronto. We were based in Toronto up to that point. And I came down here because a publisher helped support me down here and wanted me to move down here. And my publisher's great people, but they had me writing two songs a day. So I
Oh,
was
wow.
writing one session from 10 till 1, and then lunch from 1 to 2, and then another writing session, maybe with a different group of people, maybe or one other, it could be 2, 3, or just one other person, and then another writing session from 2 till 5, every day, 5 days a week.
Oh my gosh.
So, which is really very, very different than when I wrote some of the songs you were talking about, a few minutes ago, like "Hit Me with Your Best Shot" or "Don't Shed a Tear," Paul Carrack, or the Joe Cocker songs. I wrote a lot of those on my own or with one other person, and I took my time. If it took me a year to write or a month to write, I just wanted the song to be right. So now all of a sudden I'm thrown into this world where you're writing, 10 songs a week probably.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, people are writing thousands of songs a year. And I did that for a while, and I got to write with some great people. Gary LeVox of Rascal Flatts, some of the other Rascal Flatts guys, and it was a tremendous learning experience. But I realized that it really wasn't. I wasn't doing my best work. I didn't function in that environment the way you have to. Like, you have to really be great at that, because it's very competitive. Lots of people trying it, and there are lots of people, as I said, who are very, very good at it. I didn't feel like I was one of them particularly. So, and so I tried to go back to writing the way that I write, and I couldn't do it. After those years of writing the Nashville way, I was just kind of, I kind of lost my way there, and so I got very involved with advocacy for music creators because it's a real challenge now to make a living. It's much hard. It's hard as it was when I was starting out. It's much, much harder now, and the revenue streams are not good, even if you have a lot of streams. So I did that for a number of years, and I tried to write. I would come back to it and try to write, but I couldn't make that breakthrough. And then um, probably after 7 years of just having a dry period, one day I was sitting there trying to write yet again, and with encouragement from my friends and family, and you got to get back at it. And I was sitting there trying, and this idea of "We Win," which was the first song on
Hmm.
the EP, came to me. The idea of that, and trying to process the world the way it is today, the political situation, to come back to that in America and beyond. I was having a lot of trouble processing what's going on, and just "We Win." Just it felt like the door had been flung open again, and I had a path to writing songs again. So I had a little bit of music that I liked, and then I had just those two words: "We" and "Win." We win, and that that led me. They're two pretty short words, and
Wonderful
but
words.
that led me. Yeah, they are, and it led me back to where I think I needed to be. And not exactly the same. I think we're never the same people we were. We're 5 or 10 or 20 years ago. So,
Sure.
but I was able to relearn the process of
That's
writing
great.
songs. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
and the way you describe the Nashville writing scene, it really sounds like it could take a toll on you physically, mentally. What is something that has really helped support you in finding your way back to music?
Well, part of it is desperation. Let me start there.
I get that.
uh, Yeah, I briefly went to therapy years ago. In fact, "Hit Me with Your Best Shot" kind of came out of a therapy session. But but music has always been self therapy. It's always been a way for me to you know dig in to what was going on inside of me in relation to what was going on in the world at any given moment, and deal with it somehow. There's that word process, which it maybe is overused, but it does. It helps me kind of process it and come to terms with what's going on. So that's a really important part of it. And as I said earlier, I mean, I have friends who are fantastic songwriters and music people in Toronto, here in Nashville, and other parts of the world. And they were kind of like, when are you gonna write another song? You need to get back and writing songs. Now they were probably trying to get rid of me, you know, from whatever, hanging out with them and distracting them, and also the time I was spending on advocacy. But yeah, that was really important too, to have that support, that support group that could really you know keep pushing me in the right direction, and I'm sure glad they did.
The support group is always super, super important for sure. And so I know we've only just met like 12 minutes ago, but you strike me as a very thoughtful guy. So I am super curious, why did you name the EP Film School?
Yeah, really good question, Kayla. So there were two things when I had the 6 songs that make up Film School. I kind of thought a little bit about what held them together, because I come from back in the day there were a lot of concept albums, and albums were meant to be not just, back in those days, 10 or 12 songs, but also have some kind of a cohesive, overriding sensibility to them. So I thought, well, what is it about these things? And I listened to them and I went, they're all kind of stories told by somebody using dialogue. If you think about "We Win," or "Waters Rise," or the songs that are on Film School, it's very much like dialogue in a movie where someone, a short film, maybe a short, just one of those short subject type films. But it's very much like a character in one of those movies just telling a story, or through the dialogue letting the listener in on what's going on, what the narrative is. So I really felt there was an important common thread there. So yeah, I felt there was that kind of a cinematic. I mean, that sounds like it's a big word, and I think maybe it's too big, but just kind of a movie, a thing about that felt like short subject movie or film, all the songs, and to come back to something I said earlier, I also felt like I had relearned how to write. So I was kind of going to school on the whole thing again, and figuring out what songwriting was to me, and why it was important, and why I wanted to do it, and just as important, why I wanted to share it with other people. So yeah, so those two ideas came together in the Film School title of the EP.
That makes a lot of sense. And the photo on the cover, is that you?
Yeah, that's me, and that's also film. So, which also played into it a little bit. My father was kind of an amateur photographer sometimes, um, and that was actually a slide. A slide is like pretty archaic technology where instead of getting a picture developed, you actually got a piece of the film, colorized film, and you would project it on a sheet on the wall or a project, or a screen of some kind. So my father died when I was quite young. I was 18 when he passed away. And these slides that he took when I was very young were in storage for 40 years. And if you look at that cover, the colors there, the reds and the yellows,
Hmm.
the film had aged. The film had aged that way. Those
Oh,
weren't the original colors.
okay.
So I just thought it was it was kind of kind of an interesting, for a lot of reasons. I guess there's some sentimental reasons in there, but also I thought it was in keeping with the whole film school idea. So
It definitely all comes together. I did get a chance to listen to it earlier this week, and I think cinematic is a perfect word for it, to be honest. You've got six
yeah.
beautiful songs, and I'm not a songwriter, but I'm a professional song listener. And I can definitely say that when I was listening, I feel like I was getting, like these images of someone else's story as you go through the songs. And so, if you'll indulge me a little bit, I'd love if we could pick maybe three of the songs and talk about like the process of how you were writing them. I noticed the date range went from 1984 all the way to 2023. So I'm definitely
Hmm.
curious there.
Well, I'll start with the '84. That's a song called "Special Girl," and it's a song that has always been close to my heart. Not all of them are. They're all kind of like your kids, but you get along with some of your kids better than other of your kids sometimes. And and that's one that I've always felt very close to. And maybe as I explained, maybe that'll more of that will come to light. But when I listened to it not long ago, because some people were commenting about it, I think on social media. And I listened to it and I went, my God, that is so 80s. It sounds so 80s. A lot of synthesizer, a lot of, drum, early drum machine. And, look at it, still sounds good, I think. But thought, geez, I really would like to pare it down and just do kind of a piano vocal version of it. And so that's what happened. And I went to a friend who's a wonderful musician and arranger, Lou Pamonti, in Toronto. I was in Toronto for other reasons, and I just reached out to him, and we sat down and came up with the version that's on there. So, and it is quite simple. It's just piano. There's some strings, my vocal, and some background vocals. So it's a much simpler rendition. So, um, and the special girl was at the time she was my girlfriend back in the '80s, and we broke up for a year and a half. It was my fault, and I realized it. And the song was kind of my my way of getting myself ready to get on my hands and get on my knees and beg for her to come back to me, which she did. In fact, she's in two rooms over, and we've been married now for many years. So
Oh, that
she's
makes
still
me
my
so
special
happy.
girl, and so it's still very much alive and part of my life right now. So
That's so
that's
sweet.
why, yeah. Well, thank you. Um, any other? Do you want to pick another song, or do you want me to do that?
I mean, we talked a little bit about We Win, but I'd love to hear more from you about that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really tough time right now for a lot of us. The news is a lot of it's pretty concerning, scary. A lot of people are comparing it to the 1930s and which was a prelude to some pretty horrible stuff that came later that decade and into the 1940s. Um, So, I was pretty despondent, I guess, and like I said, trying to just, and a lot of my friends were going down the rabbit hole. They were just continually obsessing about how bad things are, and I guess there's something in me that's sort of a little more on the let's see if we can find some hope here. Let's see if we can find something positive to say. and you know, for my own mental health, again, to come back to that, for my own emotional and mental, well-being. Um, so I think that's really the underlying reason why that song came into being, and why when I came up with those two words, "We win," and the message of the song, it just really, I really felt like, this is something that helps. This helps me a lot to deal with it. What's still good? What's still important?
Right.
What's how do we not go down the rabbit hole and obsess about all the bad things? Look, they're there. I'm not saying we should ignore them,
Right.
but I am saying that being depressed about it all the time, I don't think that's all that helpful. I think you have to
Yeah,
figure out a way for you to deal with it, and then maybe take the action you feel so appropriate.
I would agree. We need more of that for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I just want, yeah, I thought it was empowering, you know, and I think that's to, go back to Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger. I think that's what the kind of music they created did. It helped empower people. It helped unite them and empower them. So look, I'm not comparing myself to those guys. They were giants, but in my own way, that's I think what I was trying to get to.
I think you've accomplished it for sure.
Oh, oh, thank you,
I'll let you pick the last one,
thank you.
chef's choice.
uh, well, I don't. That's a tough one because like I said, they're my kids. So, I think "Outbound Train" is one that because it is very much a story. It's the one song where you have kind of a narrator instead of a first person sort of dialogue going on. Um, but I think it's also still very visual and cinematic. Um, that's another song. I think that one is important to me because I sort of had that idea early on. So that was sort of one where I had the title. Looking at a blank page, I had "Outbound Train," and unfortunately, the rest of it stayed mostly blank through that period where I had trouble writing. But I think it's really an homage to a guy that was very influential when I was young and was made some incredible films and TV shows, whose name was Rod Serling. And Rod Serling had a show when I was a kid called The Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
And it, you can still, I'm sure, watch it on YouTube. It was really groundbreaking. It incredibly influenced me in my life. It showed me how popular culture could be very profound and very meaningful. It didn't have to just be kind of surface and and substantial. Um, and I know Rod Serling influenced a lot of people like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and Scorsese, all kinds of filmmakers and other creative people over the years have been very, very influenced by Rod Serling. So Outbound Train is really kind of is me paying, homage to Rod Serling and the Twilight Zone. And it's a little strange. It's got a little bit of strangeness in there, but yeah, hopefully it works.
I think so. We like a little bit of strangeness. We don't like things that are too normal around here.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, you mentioned that you were sort of relearning about the songwriting process. So for young songwriters attending the Eddie Schwartz Film School, what is a piece of advice that you would give to them?
Well, I would start with you have to just love making music so much. It has to it almost has to be that you can't really do anything else because it's not an easy way to make a living, and it's very, very challenging these days, more challenging now than I think it has been probably ever in some ways. So that's something you just have to make sure. You have to be honest with yourself. How much do you want this? How much do you want to make a life doing it? There's no paycheck at the end of the week or the month. you never know what tomorrow will bring. Even, after all these years of me doing it, I have no idea what my income will be one year to the next, which is why I ended up in Nashville and doing what I was doing, because it was getting very hard in the 90s to make a living for me, so be very sure that this is something you want to do if you want to devote your life to this, because like I said, it's not easy. On the other hand, the lows are there, but the highs are great. When it works, it's wonderful. But anyways, I would start with that speech, and then when the 30 or 40 people who leave the room are gone, then the two people who are left, I would say, okay, now let's figure out how to write a song.
Yeah, high risk, high reward sounds like.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's high risk, high reward. And the thing is, you could do it. Look, and I drove cab. I worked in a bookstore. I was a furniture mover. I mean, I did. I was a part-time. I helped, my mother was a bookkeeper. I helped her do the books for a hardware store. Um, yeah, be prepared. You may have to be doing a lot of other, get into the gig economy in a serious way and write, and then at 3 or 4 in the morning, I'd be sitting there, writing songs back in the day. So there's that. And let me add one thing: believe in yourself. Don't let anybody, if you really want this and you really believe in it, don't ever let anyone tell you you're on the wrong path. Never take no for an answer. Stay with it.
That's great advice. And that's a lovely moment for other people, but I also want to give a little moment of reflection for yourself. You've been in this industry for over 40 years. What is something that you are proud of?
That's a really good question. I mean, I'm certainly very, very proud of the association I've had with some incredible artists. I owe them so much. I mean, primarily I've made a living writing songs that other people have recorded. And I didn't write them. People say, well, you wrote this hit me for Pat Benatar, you wrote this song for the Doobies, or that song for Paul Carrack. I mean, I always wrote songs that I believed in. That, in other words, I never pretended to write for anybody else, because I don't know what's in their heart or what's in
Sure.
their mind. So I'm proud of the fact that I was able to be true to myself throughout most of this process. But I'm very, very proud of the fact that some of these incredible, giants, Joe Cocker, the Doobie Brothers, Pat Benatar, so many others, Paul Carrack, I've always idolized him amongst these other folks. So, I'm very proud of the fact that they saw something in my music and decided to record it. And let me add that the other thing I am proud about right now is I put in a number of years, as I said, advocating for the next generation of music creators. I'm going to be okay at this point in my life, but I am concerned about where music goes, and I'd like to know that the next generation and the generation after that of people who want to do this actually can do it. They can do it professionally. They can devote their lives to making music. So I'm proud of the fact that I, spent, when I couldn't write, when I was having trouble, I made myself useful by doing a lot of advocacy work for music creators, for songwriters, for composers, for artists, for all rights holders. And, we made some headway. The situation still have a long way to go. Um, and it's not easy going, because there's a lot of very powerful folks on the other side of the equation who don't really want to pay, don't want
Mm-hmm.
to, they're quite happy to make money off of other people's music, but they don't want to
Yeah.
pay those people when they do. Um, so I'm proud of the years that I devoted to that, and the fact we were able to make some headway.
That's great. So, one of the last segments that I do on the show is called Artists Ask Artists. And so,
Mm.
my last guest has a question for you, and then you can ask anything to my next guest. So, my last guest is the season 5 finale, and his name is Nathan, and he's from the band Makaija. And he would very much like to know if you think that shrimp are bugs.
Oh my God, that's yeah. I don't think they're. I think they're probably related to bugs, but I think they are. Listen, all life is related to all other life, so I guess that goes without saying. I think they're crustaceans.
I would
I
agree.
think that's a. I think that's a. I think that's a different category, but they are bug-like. They are bug-like.
Okay, Nathan. Shrimps are bug adjacent, we've decided.
Bug adjacent. There you go. I like that. I like that. They're bug
Awesome.
adjacent.
Okay. So you can ask anything for my next guest. It could be related about creation, or it could be something about our shrimps bugs.
Well, I should ask: is like our shrimps some kind of theme that's been going through a number of the shows, or was that
Nope.
just sort of a
That
okay?
was that was just fresh out of Nathan's
I
head.
yeah, because I don't want to break the chain if this is like an
Oh
ongoing
no, you can ask literally
shrimp.
anything.
Okay, okay. I was going to say are lobsters bugs, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, that you're really on the spot. I didn't expect to be asked something like that, but that's a really good question. Okay, here's something that comes back to music, and it's I think very timely. Do you use generative AI to make music? And if so, in what way do you use it?
Okay, that's a great question. Awesome.
Well,
Okay.
well, yeah, no, it's kind of, I mean, so many of the people I know that write music are using it these days, so it's definitely in the air.
Yeah, no, I'm always a little bit curious when it comes to creators and the use of AI, so that I like that question.
Great, great. I'll look
Perfect.
forward
And
to hearing
so
the answer. Yeah.
awesome, yeah. And so lastly, I like to give space for shameless self-promo. So Eddie, is there anything that you would like to promote? How can people connect with you? Where can we find you?
Well, since this just came out, I'll hold it up. Okay, can I do that? Is
Yeah,
that
there it
okay?
is. That's the photo.
Whoop, whoop, whoop,
Oh
whoop.
no.
It's okay. So there's the cover. There's film school. Um, it's. I hope people will give it a listen. I hope they'll enjoy it. I do have a few CDs, and they can get through to me they can reach me at info at eddieschwartzmusic.com. Or just go to, if they want to know more about what I've done, eddieschwartzmusic.com. EDDIESCHWARTZ music.com. And that's my shelfless self promotion.
Awesome. Eddie, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been such an honor, and I've really enjoyed learning more about film school.
Kayla, it's been great. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Of course, have a great rest of your day.
You too. You too.
That's all for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to show Eddie some love in the comments and check out Film School, which is his EP that's out now on all platforms. Speaking of all platforms, you should make sure that you're following the Morning Brew Podcast on Instagram, Spotify, and wherever else that you get your podcasts. Be sure to tune in 2 weeks because I'm bringing you an interview with Jeff Thomas, an independent songwriter, and he is going to be performing one of his songs live on the show. Until next time.